Here we are. We are on air. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to an episode of the Brown Sisters Speak Coffee Chat. We host coffee chats with mental health organizations, advocates, therapists who are willing to share their mental health stories and offer advice for those living with or supporting someone with a mental health disorder. I'm Aisha T, founder of Brown Sisters Speak, and I am so glad to sit here this morning with Tiffany Shivers. She is the founder of Blaque Blue. Tiffany, why don't you come on and tell us about yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm Tiffany. I'm the founder of Blaque Blue. It's an online platform for women of color who experience mental health struggles. And so I invite you guys to go check out the website. It's Blaque Blue, BlaqueandBlue.com.
Awesome. So Tiffany, tell us your sister's story. Your sister's story again is, what brought you to the point of living with or supporting someone with a mental health condition.
Yeah, of course. So my story kind of goes back to kind of all the way back to when I was 13, 14. I've always struggled with mental health. When I was growing up, when I was going through womanhood, I would go through common depressions where I would sleep through them, where I'd have constant panic attacks. My method of coping was crying, and it kind of stuck with me until adulthood. And so after I finished my master's program, I moved up to Chicago and I was working a job with children. And so it took up a lot of time. I was on a nonprofit board. I was doing a lot of different things in the community. And I think it was just that I wasn't really taking time for myself. I ended up having a really horrible meltdown where I was contemplating committing suicide. I remember distinctly sending my mom a text saying, I don't think I want to live anymore. And I proceeded to put my phone on airplane mode. And luckily, fortunately, as you see today, that I did not do it. But weeks later, I wrote a blog post that got published on a major media platform. And it was shared through my networks, through other people's networks, through friends' networks. And it kind of brought a common theme to me from text messages, emails, and people just sharing and saying, like, you know what, I go through the same thing. And I never feel like I have an outlet. Thank you for sharing your story. And I think that is really what caused me to create Blaque Blue. I just wanted a place where women felt supported in their mental health journey and felt like that they had other women of color to lean on. I think, especially in my life, like my parents, my friends, my boyfriend, they always tell me how proud they are of me and how much I've accomplished in my life. And at the same time, while that's great, it always felt like I couldn't fail. It always felt like I always had to be the strong one, and I always had to carry so much on my back, and I always had to continue to just be strong for other people. And so it caused me to have so many meltdowns, and it caused me to just put others first. And I realized that I wasn't taking care of myself. So Blaque Blue is kind of just a little network where you can find tips for maintaining your mental health, a supportive network for women who can just come together and tell their story. So that's kind of how it all got started, and that is my story.
Awesome. So let's see if I can find you. I got so many screens open. Do you ever do that? You have like so many screens open, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So this little introduction, this is my daughter Naima. For those of you who don't know, I'm a single mom. So she pops in occasionally for our sister stories, and she says hello to everyone. Say hello, Naima. Hi. Okay.
Hi.
So we were going to bridge over into the conversation of the stigma affecting Black women in the mental and expressing our mental health or issues. Would you like to start that topic off for us?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that I found, like with Blaque Blue and in my personal life as well, is this stigma with Black women who are going through their mental health journey. I know that one thing for me was that I just felt like I couldn't ask for help or I couldn't ask for help, or I couldn't talk about what I was going through because, like as a Black woman, you're supposed to be strong. You're
Here.
supposed to kind of carry the
Here.
weight of the world, I guess you could say. And you're not allowed to complain, and you're not allowed to seek help. And I think women around the world can kind of relate to this, as far as like when you do want to do something for yourself, it's felt like it's looked down upon. And
Yeah.
so I kind of
You
just
are.
want to talk about the stigma that
Go
Black
ask Michael for help.
as far as asking for support and just getting the help we need.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
What's do you think that the stigma is kind of a like a learned stigma, like we learn it growing up?
Yeah, I think we definitely do learn it growing up. In my life, like my grandma, she's the one in our family that literally does everything for everybody. She runs herself ragged, just doing everything for everybody. And I don't think she takes time for herself. I don't think she takes
Or
time
that
to
way?
breathe. And so that's kind of like what my mom grew up on, just that selfless giving. And so today my mom is that type of person. If you ever need something, you can ask her. If you need a favor, if you need someone to plan your party, you can ask her, and she'll do it, and she'll do it with a smile on her face. But it's not healthy at the same time, because I saw like the back end of it, of like her stressing out and her just melting down because there was so much on her plate. And so yeah, I do think it's definitely a generational curse, in a sense, that we take after what we learn. And if we don't change that learned behavior, I could see generation after generation after generation kind of I won't say crumbling, but not taking care of themselves the way they really should.
Right.
Hmm.
That's interesting that you say that, because there's something, one of the board members who's very versed and educated
Hmm.
in trauma in the Black community, she taught me about epigenetics. And I'm not sure if you know what epigenetics is, but it kind of speaks to the issue of we as people can carry on this, we can perpetuate this stigma and this drama based on not only what we grew up seeing, but it can be genetic.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like ingrained in our genes to perpetuate the issues and the problems and the trauma that we face every day. Um, and I know for me, stigma, it was the superwoman complex. I'm not sure how old you are, but I know I come from a generation of single mother. There were single mothers. Um, Single mom, it's like you have to be strong. You
Hmm.
have to hold it down. You have to play the part of both roles. There's no, like you're saying, there's no time to break down.
Hmm.
And so, what do you think is one way that we can combat the stigma?
That's such a good question. And I think what I've found, at least, is just being open. We have a private Facebook group that we always invite women to join. And it's a place where women, they're just open about their struggles. And
Uh-oh.
it's, hello?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
um, but I was just saying, we have our private Facebook group, and it's a place where women can be open about their struggles. And so um, a lot of women talk about very similar things, which is one thing that I think is a big problem, is that women always, or Black women especially, always think that they are the only ones who are dealing with that particular problem. But you would be surprised. A lot of people deal with depression. A lot of people deal with anxiety. A lot of people deal with postpartum depression. But then just having that supportive network so that they can find solutions to what they're dealing with. And also from that, we have to teach our children how to take care of ourselves, and how to do simple things like say no. And I think that's a valuable skill that we don't teach our kids, is how to say no, and how that you don't always have to please everybody. And then also just daily maintenance. Like you should meditate at least once a week, even if it's in your car, even if it's while you're in the shower. You should have that time with yourself where you can just think and just be one with yourself. And I think it's just going to take a generation of people who are proactive about their mental health and proactive about viable solutions and spreading that on to the next generation to create that ripple effect.
I think you're right. And I know another way to help break that stigma also is to provide cultural competent community education.
Yes, yes.
Not only are we then teaching our children, but like you're saying, the generation of advocates and policy changers, that gap on what exactly mental health is and how to work together to educate ourselves on it. I know there are a lot of organizations, shout out to all the organizations that do offer this type of support in the communities. But we really should go into the troubled communities. I mean, you're from Chicago, so I can be real. So like on the south and west side of Chicago, I don't remember growing up on the south side and seeing anyone come to my school, anyone in the clinic talking to my parents or a family member about mental health. It's health education around diabetes. And that's really all I remember. It was really more physical than mental. So that one way to combat this stigma is through education. What are your stances on, providing that educational space within Blaque and Blue? Is that something that you all are going to be working on?
Yeah, actually, so this is a good time to say it. So we're rebranding and we're changing our name. I'll give you the update and everything. But we're also working on a girls program for like young women between like, right now we're thinking 13 through 15. Because I do think it's so important because I actually, I lived in Chicago. I worked with a mentoring program on the West Side. It was wonderful. It's a great mentoring program. But I think a lot of the girls in the program didn't know how to accurately express their emotions and express like if they were depressed, instead of like saying like being able to say I am depressed, they would lash out and you can see them being suspended and I don't know, they would also do this thing where they would cling to boys and like to me it was just like in hindsight as a 26-year-old, it was just like, whoa, like that's not the way you need to be going. But I think it's because like in schools, we don't talk about emotional wellness and we don't talk about mental health and we don't talk about how that affects you, how that affects like your lifelong journey. And so, I do think there needs to be more of a push, especially how you say culturally competent education. Because I think a lot of other cultures don't realize how hard it is to be a Black woman in America or how hard it is to be a Black man in America. Especially we're living in such like a traumatic state where every other day you're seeing on the news like a young Black man is killed by the police or by gang violence or what have you. And so I think there definitely needs to be a push, and I hope that our girls program helps with that push. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it seems like all of us, we're all rebranding. So are we. Well, we can have that conversation offline. Our work. But you brought up Black men, so I think now is a great time to bridge into Kid Cudi.
Yes. So
talk about that. Go ahead, Tiffany.
So I'm not sure if everybody listening, they saw it, but Kid Cudi recently put out a Facebook message or post about how he's checking into what he called was rehab because he's suffering from depression, suffering from suicidal thoughts. And it causes huge, like I would call it a revolution in the mental health world because a lot of Black men have come to the forefront and kind of like say, you know what, I deal with this depression and I deal with anxiety and I deal with mental health issues. And I thought it was like a really just wonderful thing. Like a hashtag has started from it. It's called You Good Man. And it's just like all these Black men who are just being proactive and creating a supportive network for each other. So I think it's a wonderful thing. But it's so funny because yesterday I read an article. It's posted on our Facebook site that um, it's kind of sexist at the same time. I don't know if you remember back a couple months ago, Kaylani, she committed
Yeah.
suicide. She posted that picture, and this article brought up a great point because when Kaylani, when she posted her suicide attempt, everybody went in on her. They called her a hoe. They called
That's
her.
right.
They said she was cheating on Kyrie. It was just this whole like I don't know anti Kaylani movement, and it just blew me because I think mental health is mental health. When you're going through something, I don't care what the what I want to say, what the past was that brought you to that point. Like whether you're a cheater, whether you're a good person, whatever, you should be supported in the same way. And I just thought it was, I don't know, it's just crazy how such a great thing could be like shadowed by the past and Kaylani's story. And I don't know, it was just an interesting thing. Like,
I just found that article.
mm-hmm.
That's so amazing. I just went to your page and reshared it on the Brown Sister Speaks page, but it's really true. Like the
Mm-hmm.
whole, when you really look at it with I guess a glass lens,
Mm-hmm.
that's our society though. Oftentimes women, we come out and we express how we feel, and it's to our male counterparts, and then they get all the glory
Yeah.
for coming out and being strong, and then we're still like here like, but wait, this was my story, and look how you made a very good point. She was bad. She was drug in the dirt for just being honest and open.
Yeah, and I even wrote a blog post about it, like because to the extent that she was like drugged was just so like disappointing. Like I was literally disappointed in people. Like some of the stuff that they said, like, oh, she cheated, now she needs like a cover up. And I'm like, who tries to kill themselves as like a cover up? To me, that just seems so right. And what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind.
That's okay. Well, you know what's interesting about that? You said that was ignorant, but then that's that stigmatized. That's that lack of education that we have. You know, it'd be interesting to see who was making the comments. You know, was it more the men from their point of view about Kaylani, or was it more of us as women? You
Yeah.
know, because sometimes we as women, as Black women especially, we're very hard on each other, and we're very hard on ourselves, and we lack empathy with one another. To already be struggling with mental illness, and then on top of that come from a culture that lacks sisterhood and empathy, that makes it even harder.
Right. And that's why I'm so
Yeah, so
that's why I'm so big on like supportive networks of women, like wherever you're at. Like if you're Black in the nonprofit world and you're a woman, you should have a supportive network for that. If you're going through mental health, you should have a supportive network for that, because I think so many times like we bring each other down, which I can never understand, is how we can uplift like the men so high, but then when it comes to interactions between each other, we bring each other so low to the point where it's like it's just insane. And like we should be the main ones bringing each other up, because we're like, I always say that women are just the core of life. Like we have the power to influence the lives around us, and we also give life. Like we are like the game changers of the world in a sense, but we're at this point where we're always bringing each other down, that we can never rise to our full potential. We're always dragging each other down, like crabs in a bucket, basically.
pretty much. But I think it takes game changers, you know, to set that tone and set that standard. You know, like, hey, we don't need to compete. We can collaborate. Let's do this together, right?
Someone told me it's like the theory of not manifestation. No, it's something to where it's like you have to have this this mentality that there's enough space in the bucket that everyone can succeed. I forgot the
Right.
name for it, but even in like the mental health world, like there's so many like mental health advocates, mental health organizations that are geared towards women of color. And like as I kind of got more into it, I found that out more and more. And at the same time, I was like, I kind of had this thing where I was like, okay, there's so many people here. Like, do I have a space here? Like, should I be advocating for something else? And I had to take a step back and say, like, no, this is what you're passionate about. There's enough room for everyone to spread their message and succeed. And especially when it's such an important message and it
Mhm.
affects so many people that we all have to be working together to make this happen.
Exactly. I totally can relate and agree. I was talking to a branding niche down. You got to niche down so that you're different than everyone else. And I'm like, well, why should we be different? Why can't we all be collectively? Why can't we be a unit? Why can't when Black and Blue tweet something, Brown Sister Speaks retweet it, or when Mia Anika tweets something, we all retweet it. Like
Mhm.
camaraderie amongst each other. I don't care if Mia, if Dior Vargas, you, me, who, whichever one of us gets on Forbes, we're gonna repost that because that's major. Because we're all sisters and we're all life changers, you know?
Mhm.
So, girl, you got me started. Let me calm down. But this is a really important piece of our conversation because there are those times as leaders of organizations we're just kind of like, are we why am I doing this?
Mhm.
What's the bigger picture? Should I be doing this? I don't know if you've gotten this, but I've gotten, well, why is it just for Black and brown women?
Girl,
Right,
yes.
talking about mental health for all women. Don't all sisters matter? And I'm like, well, that's kind of like saying Black lives, why all lives matter versus
Mhm.
Black lives matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we have to have a space to hold for each other.
Hmm. And I think it's important. Like, yes, I do believe that like everyone should have um, should be healthy when it comes to their mental health. Like, I think we should all have just be healthy. And so it's so funny you said that because I was in this pitch competition and it was
Hmm.
through the first round, I got to the top 20. And the second half of it was people voting. And I remember like I would tell people to vote and I would kind of spread it around and people would comment underneath my pitch and say like, nope, I won't vote for this. Why don't you care about all people? Why is it just um, and I would have to like I felt like I always had to fight like and say like you know what like you can use whatever resources on the site because my target audience is women of color and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And like that little episode just kind of brought to light like how how I don't know, like exactly why we need organizations like this that deal with women of color because other people, other cultures don't understand. Like I always tell people we have a distinct set.
Oh, can't,
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
hear me?
Wait, say something, Tiffany.
Hello?
Ah, hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay,
Okay,
awesome. Yes.
perfect. So I always tell people like that women of color have this distinct set of barriers that we face when dealing with our mental health. And I don't think that other people understand that. And I think that's why organizations like Brown Sisters Speak and Blaque and Blue are so important because what we understand, the society doesn't, I guess you'd say. So it's good work that we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to go back to Kid Cudi, and I want
Yeah.
to ask your opinion on this. So I was watching the hashtag go through,
Uh-huh.
and then all of a sudden there was a Caucasian gentleman who's like, "Illness too, but what about white people? What about white men?" Experience that when we, as people of color, take a stance on an issue, it's kind of we're demarginalized,
Uh-huh.
and that the primary race is put kind of above. Have you
Right.
noticed that? And how has that affected? I know you mentioned it a few minutes ago, but how has that affected your communication um, as a woman of color?
Um, that's a really, really good point. Do you remember like the woman who started April Rain, who started Oscar So White? I was at a conference and she brought up a really, really good point that all other races, they want us to take up their struggle. And whenever something starts with like a person of color, it's always like, well, why aren't you saying this race and da 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 da, and this race and this race and this race? And I think for my communications, at least, I will always have a target of women of color. Like that will never change. Um, I honestly, I can't pick up the, I can't advocate for everybody. And I say that just in the sense of I am a woman of color. I know my struggle and I advocate for it because that's what I know. As far, I'm not a white male and I'm not a white female, so I don't know your struggle going through mental health. And I'm not saying that you don't struggle. I'm not saying that there isn't a stigma in your community. I just don't know it just because I haven't experienced that. I know it from like research and writings, but that's not the same as experiencing something. And so I make my communications always directed towards women of color. Yes, some of it is stuff that like crosses racial barriers, but at the end of the day, it's always directed towards women of color. And I think that's okay. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's okay to want to look after your people. I think it's okay to want to advocate for your people, advocate for your experience as a woman of color. Um, it is what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we've covered all of our topics. Look at us moving right along for today. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
Um, yeah, just go to the site when you get a chance. We're rebranding, we're changing up some things, but that'll all be released and announced later. Also, just constantly take care of yourself. And I know life gets hard and you have a lot of stress, but just make sure you're meditating, make sure you're exercising, make sure you're finding your supportive group of women who you can talk openly and honestly about. And just at the end of the day, just stay hopeful and just make sure you are taking care of yourself.
That's yes, good point. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tiffany. I appreciate you taking your time out your schedule.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you for watching our coffee chat. If you need support, please reach out to Blaque and Blue and Brown Sisters Speak. We are here for you. We both have private Facebook groups. We both have amazing online communities. Just reach out. We're here for you. I hope you guys have a great day and thanks for watching.